It's getting sloppy.
All right, we're going to begin here shortly. Please ensure your cell phones are off or on silent, and council members ensure your microphones are turned on.
Fulton Bennett is the new assistant
Okay.
in, what do you?
Planning.
Yeah.
All right, good evening, everybody.
And
Today is
ATT.
Monday, June 5th, 2023. This is a Committee of the Whole meeting for Barberton City Council. Before we begin our Committee of the Whole meeting, we will jump right into individual committee meetings for this evening. And first up is Street, Sidewalk, and Lighting with Mrs. Angela.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to call to order the Streets, Sidewalks, and Lighting meeting. Today is June 6th at 6:02. Members of the committee, I'm Chair, Erica Bailey, and Shorter Griffin. Other council members, as noted on my sheet, along with guests noted on my sheet. I have two pieces of legislation. Both of those are requested by the city's engineer, Mike Tiadecki. The first one is requesting legislation to allow the mayor to revise the contract with the Ohio Department of Transportation, ODOT, for the improvement of 4th Street Northwest, and that's CR 662, from Westlake Avenue to Norton Avenue, and we're asking for emergency wording so the legislation can go to the state in a timely manner. What that consists of is that previously, the legislation was based on bids that ODOT received, and they're higher than the estimated costs. ODOT revised the total of our share, the city share, to $345,923. That's an additional amount of $30,250. As everything, the cost of the hourly wages and the asphalt, whatnot, everything has gone up. So in order to get started with this, we need an adjusted final resolution, which is what this is. Do I have any comments, any questions from my committee? No. From the body? No. From any guests? No. Do I have a motion to call for this?
So moved.
Mr. Griffin first and Mrs. Bailey second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Now, the second piece of legislation is requesting, now this is the City of Barberton and ODOT working together with this, and it is a piece of legislation to authorize the mayor to enter into contract with the Ohio Department of Transportation, ODOT, for the improvement of Worcester Road West by resurfacing of Worcester Road from 31st Street to Hudson Run Road and reconstruction of Worcester Road from Hudson Run Road to 2nd Street Northwest, including sewer improvements and road diet. Again, we're asking for emergency wording, so this request can be, a certified copy can go to, can be returned to ODOT in a timely fashion. Now, included on this to 2nd Street are the railroad tracks that, you know, we're going to, the railroad company's going to put the ties in and everything, and then as we do the asphalt from 2nd Street over, it's going to all be like one piece, so it won't be bumpy or anything of that sort. This, too, is a huge project, and this right now is just the I can't say it. It's the beginning of this legislation. We'll have more coming back asking to go into enter the contract and whatnot. Does anybody in my committee have any questions?
No.
No? Anybody from the body? Anybody from our guests? So Hudson Run Road will be redone with curbs and any necessary sewer lines or anything of that sort. So do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Mrs. Bailey first, second Mr. Griffin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There's no pending legislation, And miscellaneous, I'll open that up to my committee. Shorter, do you have anything to say, miscellaneous?
No.
No? To the council members, does anybody have any? No? Anybody out there have any questions regarding streets? No? All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
A second.
Mrs. Bailey, Mr. Griffin, and we are adjourned at 6:07. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Angela. Next up, Environmental Health and Social Services, Mrs. Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to call to order the Committee on Environmental Health and Social Services. It is June 5th, 6:07 p.m. We are in council chambers. Myself as chair, Mr. Jaber and Mrs. Angela are also present, and then all other council members as well. And all others are as noted on my sheet. We do have a piece of requested legislation and appointment, a letter from Mayor Judge requesting council's confirmation of Ms. Hicks to the Barberton Board of Health for a term to start immediately ending December 31st, 2027. Her questionnaire is also attached. Did everyone receive the questionnaire? Do I have
Do
any?
you have a resume? I think that's part of council rules. Do you have a resume?
No, I reached out to her and she's getting me one. Was that adding a resume part of the council rules in addition to the questionnaire?
Correct, yes, ma'am.
Yes. Mhm.
Resume and application.
The application and then a resume.
Yeah, Lori mentioned that to me the other week and I'm still in the process of trying to get that.
Okay. Okay. Do you want to hold this until you get the resume?
I guess we have to. Is that what you're telling me? Okay. And we'll just hold this. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Mayor, could we have that resume by the end of the week?
Hopefully.
So,
I mean, it's not like I have it in hand, I just haven't figured it out.
but,
As soon as I get it, you'll have it.
so, Mr. President, if the chair approves, could they hold a special health meeting for the appointment next week?
Absolutely.
That would be up to your decision there, Chair. Thank you.
So now what do I do? Not call or
Right.
anything?
Right.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, you're just going to have a special next
All
week.
right. So, any miscellaneous discussion? No. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Okay, we are adjourned at 6:09 p.m. With that, I pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Bailey. Next up, Planning, Annexation, and Codes, Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to call the Planning, Annexation, and Codes Committee to order. It is 6:09 p.m., June 5th, here in council chambers. All members of the committee are present, which includes myself as chair, Mrs. Angeloff, Mr. Jaber, and President Greer. All other council members are also present, as well as guests noted on my agenda sheet. We have one new request for legislation, a letter from Stacy Carr, Strategic Planner, requesting legislation for the adoption of the Lake Anna study. All council members should have received an email from our planning director, Pete, with a very detailed study and some ideas that they have. Pete, if you want to maybe kind of go over this a little bit. Thank you.
We're not going to have a slide.
All right, thank you, Council. As Councilman Thompson mentioned, this is a plan that we put together in working with the Cleveland Urban Design Collaborative, Kent State. This started in May of 2022, where we had quite a few meetings with city staff and the consultants to propose some preliminary ideas, which eventually led into quite a few public meetings in September of 2022, including a walking tour of the park, as well as a stand that was put up at Mumpfest. From that public participation, Cleveland Urban Design Collaborative was able to put together 26 projects that range from short to medium term. The key thing to remember for this is simply a guide, and this is nothing that's set in stone. These are recommendations based on recommendations that we receive from the general public. So nothing in here is anything that must be done, just simply guidance provided by the public of what they'd like to see as general improvements for the park.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions about this legislation? Any council members? Anyone from the audience? Yes.
Yes. Are there going to be more once this ordinance goes through, are there going to be meetings here publicly? Are you going to have it on the board that people can see? Or what's the next step after this step?
So the next step is going to be determining what projects we actually want to undertake first based on the funding that we've received. With our 2023 CDBG allocation, which has not come before council yet, it's still in draft form, we're proposing to have more allocated for capital infrastructure related projects. That's the pot of money that we would need in order to fund some of the projects that might be listed in this plan. Whether or not, but I don't have necessarily a timeline of when that will take place.
No, yeah, I was just,
But that's the pot of money that we know that we may be able to work out of originally. And then it's going to be a little bit of a challenge of trying to secure other funding sources through different grants that are out there.
grants in it. Okay. All right.
Any other questions from council members? Yes, Mrs. Graham.
Thank you. I wanted to ask, aren't some of the ARPA funds going to be used for this because of the fact that it's a park?
I'm going to defer
Mr. Mayor?
to the mayor.
Which part?
Lake Hannah.
Yeah, taking notes here.
The one that's that one?
Yeah, so we've set aside some funding for that as well, and then, as you know, we've applied to the federal government for some money as well. We want to make sure that the project moves forward and that money is not something we have to wait on. So kind of having money set aside is what we're trying to do, to get everything accomplished.
Okay. I just wanted to hit on that point because I did think that we were using some funds from there.
Alrighty. Any other questions from council members? Any from the audience? Hearing none, can I have a motion to call for this, please?
I'll make a motion.
Thank
I'll
you.
second that.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye.
Justin didn't answer.
In favor of calling.
Are you in favor of calling for that?
Sure.
All right.
That's I. You can't get away from me.
I will say, one of the things that I'm excited about, and I hope that it does go through, if you were able to look at the plans, they had suggested the amphitheater seating to go into the hill that is across from the honor roll, so you can sit there and watch the sunset, but the wall is crumbling down there, down below, so I think that's a really interesting way to fix that, so I think that would be cool. We have no pending legislation, and for miscellaneous, I just wanted to let everybody know, Design Review Board meeting, originally scheduled for June 13th, has been canceled due to lack of agenda. Board of Building and Zoning Appeals will take place June 20th here in council chambers at 5:30, and Planning Commission will be June 21st, also at 5:30 here in council chambers. Denny Little will be there to talk about Barberton Main Street. So just wanted to give you that update. Is there any other miscellaneous discussion for planning? Yes.
James Thompson, any updates on the First Mayor building? How the city ideas with that?
I don't have any updates. I don't know if maybe the mayor has any
Yeah, I was
updates.
talking to- What's the question?
Any updates on the First Mayor building to the foundation, the draft you guys sent out?
No updates.
Thank you.
Have you seen that draft at all yet, Mrs. Thompson?
I have.
Has anybody seen that draft on council, President?
No.
No.
Excuse me, what are you asking?
There's a draft for the First Mayor building purchase through the foundation for City Hall building.
There's a draft that council did.
Draft drawing.
A draft drawing of the First Merit building?
Yes, ma'am.
Chair, if I may?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I've seen it, I believe Mr. Greer's seen it. The mayor, were you at the foundation just kind of kicking around ideas with the foundation? It's not, from my understanding, the pictures and the layout things, nothing was official.
Right.
It's just kind of a guide to show the foundation that we actually are coming together on ideas. Is that correct?
Like Councilman Chambers said, there's a draft, but it's not for public consumption because it's just a draft. There's nothing been formally introduced or issued.
I just had a constituent ask about it, that's why I brought that up.
Well, I hope if something does come out of that, that y'all could fill me in, being the chair of planning. So,
Well, if you'd like to stop by and look at it.
yeah,
contact me.
yeah, that'd be great. Go ahead.
That's what I was just wondering, that wasn't an executive meeting, that it was just being talked to and it wasn't brought out publicly, or was it?
No, I mean, it wasn't an executive session by any means, but nothing, everything was collected afterwards, so.
It wasn't public, for public
Yeah, it wasn't
distribution.
disseminated for the public. It's in draft form, it's still being worked on. So, but if council wants to look at it, contact me.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
If you do get a copy, can you please send it to me?
Sure.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson.
He just
Well,
said
that's-
there's no.
Nothing's going to be disseminated because it's in draft form.
Right.
Changes are going to happen. So if you want to see it, you come in, call me, you come in, you take a look at it. But nothing's, I
Right.
don't even think we have it in email form, but I've got the hard copy.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll stop in. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Being in draft form, it's not a public record because it's not an official thing.
Right.
So it would not be emailed, it would not be passed out. As the mayor said, if upon request, you can view it, but because it's not an official record, so to speak, it's not going to be emailed or passed out or anything like that.
Any other questions, comments? Anything from the public? Hearing none, can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
I make a motion to adjourn.
I will second that, ma'am.
Right, we are adjourned at 6:18.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Next up, finance and personnel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance and Personnel, it is 6:18, Monday, June 5th.
Yes.
Why mine says May 15th on it?
Mine does too.
Yep.
Small correction on there. And we are in council chambers. The committee is present, which consists of Councilors Coburn, Thompson, President Greer, myself as chair, all others noted. Tonight we have one request for legislation, letter from Jeremy Flaker, Finance Director, requesting legislation authorizing the mayor to enter a contract with Wickert Insurance Company for a one-year renewal, the amount of $396,331. Emergency wording has been requested. Director Flaker, do you have any comments?
Just kind of want to go over, in the letter I stated, there's about a $38,000 increase from last year to this year. Just kind of go over what's driving that increase. Big portion of the increase is on the property side. So when they value the property due to inflation and everything, last year our property was valued at about $127 million. This year it came in at about $141 million for property, just adjusting for inflation and everything like that. So that was almost a $14 million increase right there, which is driving up the cost of property insurance. Auto insurance went up because we added 7 new vehicles. Unfortunately, when you replace the old vehicles with new vehicles, the insurance goes up because the cost of those new vehicles are more expensive to replace. So that's driving that. And then the next big thing is the inland marine portion of the insurance policy. That basically doubled from last year to this year. It was $6,000 last year, it's $12,000 this year. A lot of that driving force is just the equipment. So that's talking about the jet skis the park department has, the backhoes, like the expensive lawnmowers that we have, like the big zero turns that we do the parks with, the boom mower that we got last year. Those various items like that, as we get some more of this stuff, and we're not really taking off some of the old stuff because we use it until it breaks. We still have to insure that old stuff. So just basically the big three is property, auto, and inland marine. I am going to go and work with department heads this summer we do have asked them to verify all their equipment on their fixed asset listings. My department, we're talking about going actually physically out to each location to take a look at the fixed assets for them to prove to us that they still have the equipment. That way, we can give the most accurate information possible to the insurance, see if we can drive down the inland marine amount. I mean, last year, inland marine, we had 1.8 million. This year on the schedule was almost 3.8 million, a little over 3.8 million. So that doubled too. So gonna work with department heads and make sure everything is correct on that. But like I said, I know we use everything until it breaks. So that 3.8 is probably a pretty accurate figure, so, for inland marine. So just wanted to kind of go over what's driving that increase. It is those three things. Everything else, general liability, public officials, employee practice, law enforcement, the umbrella, the crime policy, all those had very little increases, if some of them didn't even have an increase. So it's those three things that are driving the $38,000 increase. So, any other questions?
Thank you, Director. With no more questions for the Director, do I have a motion to call for this?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. In favor?
Aye.
That is the only request. So miscellaneous discussion, is there any from the committee,
I have nothing.
from the body, from the gallery? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. We are adjourned at 6:23.
Thank you, Mr. Heidick. Before we conclude our individual committee meetings, I do want to give the opportunity for Mrs. Bailey to re-enter into the Health Committee if you want. Reading Rule 305A, resume, it uses the term resume and completed form for boards and commissions, questionnaire, interminglate. There does not need to be two. But they do,
Does it say and or?
nope, it says, it's titled, I'll read it here. 305, Appointments Board and Commission, A, it's headlined or bolded, and resume. All of council shall be provided the completed City of Barberton Boards and Commissions questionnaire as designed on the City of Barberton's official website for any appointment to a vacancy or a board or commission. So it uses the term intermingling. So it does say resume, but it also, it's referring to the questionnaire that the mayor provided. So if you would like to call for it tonight, you could
I mean,
re-enter.
I'm comfortable because I know, you can look up
Yeah.
her name and find out her information on the World Wide Web, so
Okay,
I'm
well,
comfortable.
all right, well, you just re-enter just like you would,
Great. Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to call to order the Environmental Health and Social Services Committee. It is now 6:24 p.m. I am chair, and Mr. Jaber and Mrs. Angeloff are also present. All other council members are noted, and all others are noted on my sheet. We have an appointment. We received a letter from your judge requesting council's confirmation of Ms. Hicks to the Barberton Board of Health for a term to start immediately, ending 12/31/2027. We all have the questionnaire. Like I said, I myself have looked up her information. She seems to be a great fit for this committee. Do you have anything else to say on this?
I will make a motion to call for this.
Okay,
I will second that.
and then all in favor?
Aye.
No miscellaneous discussion? Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I will second that.
All right, and we are adjourned at 6:25 p.m.
thank you, Mrs. Bailey. Just make note of that when you give an update that you called for it. We left and then, or you went into session, then you left and we went back into session. All right, that concludes our individual committee meetings for this evening. We'll take a 10-minute break and come back for the committee of the whole meeting.
To the air conditioning.
All right, we're going to begin. Please ensure your cell phones are off or on silent. Council members, ensure your microphones are turned
Yeah, I know,
on.
you have to keep your own records, or they don't know.
Where did my speakers? I got it. I'll find it. I'll find it afterwards. I'll make sure you do. Yeah, I just had it.
Oh, my God.
I'll find it. I know this.
And that's the same thing.
All right, today is Monday, June 5th, 2023. This is the Committee of the Whole meeting for Barberton City Council. I call this meeting to order at 6:37 PM. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, citizens addressing council, we have one. When I call your name, please step up to the podium, state your name, address, and reason for speaking. You have 5 minutes. And first up would be Mr. DeVello.
Good evening, my name is Mark DeVello. I own and live at 176 Russell Avenue. It's on the south side, off of South Van Buren. I'm going to read my statement so I don't forget anything and go fairly quickly to stay within the 5 minutes. I'm coming to you today to ask the city to review the legality of my next door neighbor who has opened up some type of retail home-based business. Russell Avenue is a dead-end street. There's only 3 occupied houses on it. 1 house is on the north side, 2 houses are on the south side, with mine being one of those 2. The property in question is 172 and sits at the end of the dead end and is a tenant-occupied rental. As you can imagine, the only cars that used to come down my street were the people who lived on it. Needless to say, traffic was virtually non-existent. It was a peaceful, quiet residential street. About a month ago, more and more delivery trucks started showing up to my neighbor's house. Everything from Amazon to FedEx, UPS, more than would be normal for a normal, regular family. In fact, today they were unloading multiple boxes of merchandise from their own cars. Then starting about 2 weeks ago, I noticed more and more strange cars coming down the road going to the neighbor's house. The people would stay for 1 or 2 minutes and be on their way. So after about a week of this and their increased trash output, it became abundantly clear that my neighbor was buying merchandise online or locally, turning around and reselling it on some online marketplace. The traffic down Russell Avenue has become so bad in just a few short weeks that literally hundreds of cars per week are going to the neighbor's house to pick up whatever they purchased online from her. The cars are coming down 7 days a week at all hours of the day and night. Yesterday alone, it was 9 cars that I was able to make note of, with the last one being at 11:45 at night. I anticipate further increases of traffic flow given the fast growth of this business. Additionally, I have no idea where all these people are coming from or who they are. At some point, safety, security, fair use of enjoyment on my property becomes an issue. Russell Avenue is not in the central business district nor a main road. The reasonable expectation for privacy and traffic flow should be that for a low-use residential street. Now, if the hundreds of cars coming down my once quiet residential street wasn't bad enough on its own, since the neighbor's house is the last house on the dead-end street and the people who live there own 3 cars, what ends up happening is that delivery trucks and the customers just park on the road, handle their transaction, go back to their car and start reversing back down the road looking for some place to turn around. Well, guess whose driveway is the first one that the people see? Most people don't drive well going forward, let alone well with the limited visibility that comes with backing up. They have taken to shortcutting my drive and going through a corner of my front yard to get to the drive, And the ones that don't do that nearly hit my truck that sits at the end of the drive on occasion. Or they back up so far that they nearly hit my other car that's parked on the other side of the driveway, but just further back. It's just a matter of time before somebody hits the truck or the car or whatever else is in my driveway, especially at night. So I've had to put 4x4s across a portion of my front yard and across my drive to stop these hundreds of cars per week from using my drive as a turnaround. So now when I leave, I have to move 4x4s, back out, get out of the car, replace the 4x4s, get back in the car and leave. When arriving back home, rinse and repeat. I should not have to do that. I'm asking the city to look into how my road is zoned. Does the current zoning allow for such a home-based retail business in a residential neighborhood? One that is generating a massive increase in traffic flow. If zoning would allow it, I'm next asking that you reference the recent deal that was abandoned to use the old Russell Avenue landfill for a sawmill, because one of the only ways to access that plot of land was to come down Russell Avenue. This body did not want increased commercial traffic using a residential street to access the sawmill. This business is generating more traffic than that sawmill ever would. In fact, it was publicly stated that some law was found that prohibited Russell Avenue from being used to access the sawmill and the old landfill. I'm asking the city to look into that law to see if it potentially could be used to prohibit a home-based retail business from operating on Russell Avenue that generates such a massive increase in traffic flow. Finally, I'm asking if options 1 and 2 don't work or can't stop the home-based retail operation, that council adopts new legislation that either changes my zoning or prohibits a business with large amounts of traffic flow from operation on a residential street. Thank you for your time. I'll answer any questions either now or at the end of the meeting.
Thank you, sir. Well, traditionally, we don't entertain any questions back and forth on here. However, before you leave, if you do stick around till the end of the meeting, Mr. Griffin is the council representative for that area. There's also some administration people here too that might be able to not help instantly right now, but be able to take the information and get back to you. If you don't stay till the end of the meeting, reach out to the office like you did today, and we can get you all the information you need, all the numbers and emails you need. So, awesome, thank you. All right. We will go into our committee reports, and we will start with Mrs. Angela, Streets, Sidewalk, and Lighting.
Thank you, Mr. President. Street, sidewalks, and lighting met this evening at 6:02. All members of the committee were present, all council members were present, and guests as noted on my sheet. We had 2 pieces of requested legislation, both pieces from our city engineer, Mike Teodecki. First one is requesting legislation to allow the mayor to revise the contract with the Ohio Department of Transportation for the improvement of 4th Street Northwest from West Lake Avenue to Norton Avenue, and asking for emergency wording. This was, the bid came in, the ODOT bid came in higher, and it's an increase of $30,250 from the original request. The second piece of legislation is requesting legislation to authorize the mayor to enter into a contract with the Ohio Department of Transportation for the improvement of Worcester Road West by resurfacing of Worcester Road from 31st Street to Hudson Run Road, and reconstruction of Worcester Road from Hudson Run Road to 2nd Street Northwest, including any necessary sewer improvements and road diet. Along with this, the railroad, that will be included in part of this contract. This is a huge project with the city of Barberton and with the Ohio Department of Transportation. Both of these have been called out of committee, and we'll be voting on those. We have no pending legislation, no miscellaneous, and we were adjourned at 6:07.
Thank you, Mrs. Angela. Next up, Planning, Annexation, and Codes with Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Planning, Annexation, and Codes Committee met this evening at 6:09 here in council chambers. All members of the committee were present, as well as all other council members, and guests are noted on my agenda sheet. The committee is calling for one piece of legislation, a letter from Stacy Carr, strategic planner, requesting legislation for the adoption of the Lake Anna study. We had a little bit of discussion about that. Our director, Pete Worsler, had explained, that this project began in May of last year. There've been many public meetings held regarding this, and there's been a ton of feedback from the community. So more info will be coming once CDBG passes and things like that. So this is just the start. For miscellaneous discussion, I gave an update for the upcoming meetings regarding planning, as far as Design Review Board being canceled, which was originally scheduled for June 13th. The BZBA meeting is June 20th, and Planning Commission on the 21st. For other miscellaneous discussion, Mr. Jaber had asked for updates on the First Merit Building, to which the mayor and Mr. Heidick explained what's going on with that. We adjourned at 6:18. That I will pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. Next up, City Utilities, Mrs. Coburn.
Thank you, Mr. President. City Utilities met on May 22nd, 2023 in council chambers. We had no request for legislation. We had no pending legislation, and we adjourned 1 minute after starting. And with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Coburn. Public Welfare and Safety, Mrs. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. President. Public Welfare and Safety met last Monday, May 22nd, 2 Mondays ago, 2023. All members of the committee were present, as well as all council members and guests as noted. We had no request for legislation. We did have one piece of pending legislation which we voted on. It was for the purchase of a Pierce Saver pumper, and that was in the amount of $875,439. And during miscellaneous discussion, Mr. Jaber was asking questions about the flock cameras, and I did not have any information. And he reached out this week to the safety director and myself, and I saw that the safety director got back to him and said there have been no new cameras installed. With that, I pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Fry. Rules, Marketing, and Development, Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rules, Marketing, and Development met on May 22nd. We met in council chambers. All members were present and guests as noted. We had no requests for legislation. With that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Environmental Health and Social Services, Mrs. Bailey.
Should I state the first time or the second time?
First time, first, second time. Yeah, you want to do both?
Read through all of it and then read through all of it again. Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Environmental Health and Social Services met twice tonight at 6:07 p.m. in council chambers. All members were present, all others were noted. There was a piece of requested legislation, which was an appointment from Mayor Judge confirming Ms. Hicks to the Barberton Board of Health for a term to start immediately, ending December 31st, 2027. Initially, we did not vote on this or call for this because we thought we needed a resume and her questionnaire. We only have a questionnaire. That adjourned at 6:09. Then we met again at 6:24 p.m. All members were present, all others were noted on my sheet. I read it a little bit, okay. There was an appointment from Mayor Judge requesting council's confirmation of Ms. Hicks to the Barberton Board of Health for a term to start immediately, ending 12/31/2027. It was called for and voted on and passed, and there's no miscellaneous discussion. We adjourned at 6:25 p.m. With that, I pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Bailey. City Properties, Parks, and Recreation, Mr. Jaber.
Thank you, Mr. President. City Properties Park Recreation met at 6:01, May 22nd, in council chambers. All members were present, including myself as chair, Mr. Heidick and Mrs. Fry. Other council members noted and guests. We had no new request for legislation. We had a few pending legislation. And with miscellaneous discussion, we had was the cameras for the city parks, and we were waiting on the equipment. And we adjourned at 6:16, sir. With that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Jaber. Finance and Personnel, Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance and Personnel is calling for the following. Legislation authorizing the mayor to enter into contract with Wicker Insurance Company for a one-year renewal in the amount of $396,331 with emergency wording requested. With that, finance passes.
Thank you, Mr. Heidick. That concludes our committee reports. Remarks from the body. Is there any? Mrs. Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to talk to you guys about this flyer that Ms. Policalio handed out. This is for our citywide basketball tournament. It's going to be June 13th through 19th. There's different age brackets and locations. This is also being shared on Facebook if you're on there. If you'd like to share it, all proceeds go to Magic's Ready to Learn to provide school supplies for all Barberton students K through 5. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. Is there anything else from the body? I don't have anything other than hopefully everybody had a good holiday. And mayor's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. If you've been to the lake recently, Lake Anna, or attended the Memorial Day service the other week, you saw that the cannon is back. This was a staple in Lake Anna for many of us who grew up here in town, mostly as a part of our jungle gym experience as a youth. Great addition to the park, and the placement really is a great fit. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you to go over there. I want to thank the Barberton Historical Society and the Barberton VFW Post 1066, especially Mr. Zelovic and Mr. Panko, who, in very short order were able to get the cannon down there on a thick concrete pad, returning the cannon down to Lake Anna Park. And like I said, it's a great fit. So if you haven't been down there, you haven't seen it, I encourage you to do so. Cannon's over 100 years old. We're working on getting it sandblasted and repainted. But a lot of miles on the cannon, a lot of history, but it looks great where it's at. And the VFW is taking donations, so and the funding that they receive through their activities is precluded from being used to sandblast or paint the cannon, so they are taking donations for that. So, Farmers Market started last week at Block 7, runs every Tuesday. A lot of great merchants there, so make your way down there. Annual yard sale is starting this week, June 8th through the 11th. No permit is necessary for that. Open office hours are this Saturday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. at the Active Adult Center, 500 West Hopkinton, no appointment. I always get there a little early and typically stay later. So anyone can stop down with any questions. Jam the RV, June 23rd. We'll start that at the concert series down at Lake Anna, just collecting school supplies, and there's a lot of people and organizations throughout the city that are doing this throughout the year. So just adding to what the need is and trying to help do away with that need. So another great event there. Construction season is underway. I hope you saw we had the completion of West Houston Street about a month ago. A new water line and resurfaced that road. They started grinding 4th Street downtown from Barber Road to the dead end at Lake Anna. I believe that's all grinded out, 4 lanes there approximately. So they'll come back through and finish that project. And as we continue through the summer months here, more projects are going to be coming to fruition. This is one of the first ones where we applied for federal money about 5 or 6 years ago. We were awarded the money at about the same time. The money's just coming in now. So we had a lot of forethought, a lot of planning years ago. Uncle Sam's picking up about 80% of the cost, give or take. But really leveraging taxpayer dollars for more money to do more road programs throughout the city. So very excited about that. And then, as I mentioned the other week, we meet internally concerning property maintenance issues throughout the city. And we can talk afterwards. Myself and the planning director already spoke a little bit about that. These meetings that we have internally involve my office, the service department, the building department, planning, police, law, and fire. Through these meetings, we've made great headway in addressing some of the issues and coming to council with some legislation. And I'm in the process now of writing a request for legislation that will provide greater resources for our inspectors who are out in the field to address issues and really hitting on the nuisance properties. You know, not the issues that pop up from time to time, but the real nuisance properties. So that should be coming here hopefully in the next few weeks. And then the use of flock cameras came up earlier. They've been extremely helpful in finding, whether it's locating missing people, tracking cars involved in crimes, and just, I believe it was earlier last week, a stolen vehicle stolen out of Akron that came through Barberton and was found. So very, very helpful in helping with those crimes. So that's all I have, unless there's any questions. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. With nothing else, this meeting is adjourned at 6:57 PM.